The last human warship drifted silently above the ruins of Europa Station, her hull bleeding heat into the void like a dying beast. Beneath the fractured ice world, signals flickered and died, the last embers of Earth's once proud colonies. Across the stars, the Galactic Consular Senate watched with cool detachment, their decree final. Humanity was to be pacified, disarmed, forgotten. Idris Harlan stood alone on the observation deck of the Arclight, a commander stripped of his rank, a soldier without a war. He stared through armored glass at the stars that had once welcomed Earth's bold ships, now cold, indifferent witnesses to her humiliation. 2 years ago, Earth stood trial in the consular hall, accused of irreparable aggression after the War of the Crimson Verge. The verdict was preordained. Humanity, fierce and inventive, had grown too powerful, too unpredictable. In response, the Senate passed the Armament Nullification Accord. Every planet-bound arsenal dismantled. Every fleet scuttled under orbital supervision. Warfare cores melted to slag. Resistance was labeled terrorism. Earth complied, barely, but there were whispers. Whispers of vaults untouched, ships unregistered, and humans who remembered. Idris was one of them. He bore the weight of the failed Mars rebellion, the scars of orbital flame and betrayal. They called it a civil action. He called it surrender. Commander Harlan, a voice broke through the stillness, sharp, calculated. He turned. Ava Roslin, former Senate liaison, once a diplomat, now something else. Her synthetic eye glowed faintly in the gloom. She hadn't worn her Senate crest in months. The Vanguard is gone. Killed the transponder before they hit Titan's edge. That's 5 unarmed colonies in 6 days. He didn't reply. Ava stepped forward. You still think the Senate is just watching? Idris exhaled, eyes hard. No, I think they're cleaning up. She nodded, and we're next. Silence thickened. Between them, heavy with unspoken names and unanswered questions. Idris walked to the control terminal and tapped in a code long forbidden. The interface denied him, restricted. Ava stepped beside him, placed her hand on the panel. It accepted her print. You were a diplomat, he muttered, surprised. I was a double agent, she said softly. The lights flickered as old systems came alive. Tactical hollows shimmered in the dark, schematics, fleet logs, redacted fire maps. One word pulsed on screen. Cerberus. Idris froze. That program was purged. Ava shook her head. No, it was buried. She reached into her coat and drew a thin crystal, black, veined with gold filament. She slotted it into the terminal. The Senate's piece is a muzzle. Cerberus was built in the last days of the Verge War, designed for when peace turned. To purge. Idris watched as the display morphed into a grim archive. Underground forges in Antarctica, stealth hangars beneath Venus cloudline, AI-integrated skirmish units slumbering in orbit. He whispered, "We never disarmed." "No," Ava said, voice trembling. "We disobeyed." The room shook, distant, thunderous. Not a system error, not a simulation. They rushed to the viewport. From the shadow of Jupiter, a black vessel emerged. No ID tags, no Senate insignia. Only a triple-spine prow, unmistakable. The Sentenax, Idris said coldly. Senate execution fleet. They found us, Ava whispered. Her hand hovered over the console. If we go dark now, we might buy a few hours. Idris didn't answer. He was watching the stars. Or rather, a pattern in them. Dozens of faint synchronized flashes. Not Senate weapons. Human distress codes. Outdated, forbidden. But unmistakable. He turned back to the terminal, to the Cerberus files. And he smiled. We're not the only ones who remember. The Sentenax broke orbit like a blade sliding from its sheath, all matte black armor and segmented limbs, its hull bristling with graviton spears and lattice bombs forbidden even in wartime. No flags, no signal hails. Just silent acceleration toward the crippled Arclight, like a vulture descending on a carcass. Inside the command deck, the lights turned crimson. "They're not broadcasting any terms," Ava Roslin murmured, her voice low, unreadable. "No ultimatums, no demands." Idris Harlan narrowed his eyes. "They don't need us to surrender. The Accord already said we did." On the Holotable, the Sentenax appeared grotesque and beautiful, an obsidian cathedral of war. Idris traced its approach vector with a scarred finger, calculating burn angles. Even if they ran now, they'd never break its range. "No defense grid?" he asked. Ava's jaw tightened. Europa Station's grid was decommissioned under the Accord. Senate inspectors ensured compliance. Even our kinetic rail was dismantled. Idris muttered. Of course they left it defenseless. They planned this long before. Then came the flash. From Europa's fractured moon crust, a geyser of molten ice burst upward, followed by a deep tremor that rippled through the ships. "Hull, seismic event?" Idris asked sharply. Ava checked her readouts. "No, something's moving beneath the moon." Suddenly, the tactical display lit up. 20 red pings, then 50, then 92, all rising from within Europa's ice shell. "That's not Senate," Idris whispered. "That's ours." Ava blinked. "Impossible." Cerberus files said nothing about. The ice ruptured. From beneath Europa's crust emerged the long-dormant swarm of human-made sentries, sleek. Angular drones blackened with age but still lethal. They moved like a school of sharks, pulsing in synchronized formation. Each bore the Cerberus insignia etched in faded white. 3 heads, 1 purpose. No mercy. The Sentenax didn't hesitate. Its ventral cannons flared to life, lashing the ice with starfire. 6 drones vaporized instantly, but the rest retaliated. Idris watched, spellbound, as the old war machines adapted mid-combat, banking into new formations, drawing enemy fire into shielded units. They struck back with scorched pulse lances that riddled the Sentenax's forward plating. "They're learning," Ava breathed. "Their A's aren't just combat grade, they're alive." "Cerberus didn't build drones," Idris muttered. "It built wolves." Still, the fight was uneven. The Sentenax shed drones like insects, its armor a vault of ancient terrors. A single graviton bomb sheared through the entire right flank of the drone cloud. When the light faded, only 30 remained. Then, silence. The last of the sentries broke formation, not to retreat, but to transmit. Ava leaned in. "They're beaming data, coordinates, reawakening other caches." Idris's face darkened. "Across the system? Across the galaxy?" The Sentenax, perhaps sensing the shift, adjusted course, ignoring the drones now and locking its weapons on the Arclight. "Targeting us," Ava whispered. "We woke something. Now they want it dead." "We're not ready for a fight," Idris growled, pacing. "Half our systems are mothballed. Our engines cold. Weapons dot stripped. Then we run," she said. "No," he snapped. "We broadcast." Ava turned, eyes narrowing. "They'll trace the signal." "They already have," Idris said grimly. "If they want to silence us, let the galaxy hear us first." He approached the old com station, untouched since the Verge War. Manual only. Analog fallback systems, primitive but incorruptible. The console hissed as power surged into it. "Recording," Ava said quietly. Idris straightened, cleared his throat. Then, to any surviving Terran bastions, outer colonies, rogue AIs, or orbital relic fleets, this is Commander Idris Harlan of the Arclight. Europa Vault is active. Cerberus protocol has been breached. The Senate has declared final intent. We are under siege, but we are not alone. If you still carry the spark, in blood, in memory, in machine, this is your call. We were not disarmed. We were buried, forgotten, but now we rise. Ava cut the feed and launched the beacon. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a pulse, one, then two, returning pings. Old codes. Distress calls from human outposts that should have been long dead. One from beneath Mars' Olympus Mongs, another from a derelict mining rig in the Gliese system. A dozen more followed. They heard us, Ava whispered, stunned. They remembered, Idris said. But the moment cracked, alarms screamed. The Setinax was closing in 10,000 kilometers. Then 9,000. Ava moved to the helm. We can't outgun it. What's your plan? Idris stared at the screen, expression ironclad. We stall. He slammed his hand onto a recessed button beneath the terminal. A manual override, long hidden. The ship groaned. Deep within, something ancient rumbled to life. Secondary. Core, Ava asked. Idris shook his head. No, something older. The ship's lights flared white. From below, they heard the howl of something reborn. Cerberus left us teeth, Idris said, stepping forward. Time to bite. The arc light screamed as it surged forward, its old bones groaning under a power surge no living engineer had authorized in decades. Deep inside the vessel's superstructure, ancient circuitry sparked back to life. Not digital, but neural. Grown from carbon-laced bioalloys designed in Earth's black labs during the last century of open war. Ava gripped the command rail as the ship pitched unnaturally, almost instinctively avoiding the Setinax's rail spike. This ship's alive, she whispered. Idris didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the tactical readout, not just of the battlefield, but the entire soul grid. Signals were lighting up like constellations forming in real time. Something woke the other nodes, he muttered. Cerberus wasn't just a weapons program. It was a defense web. Hidden everywhere. Asteroids, moons, the crust of Mars. And the Senate never found it, Ava said, almost reverent. No, Idris said, because it wasn't built for them to detect. It was built to survive us. Another alarm pulsed. Multiple signatures entering soul space, Ava said, her voice tight. Idris braced for impact. But what emerged from the heliopause were not Senate dreadnoughts. They were Terran ghost ships. First came the Oblivion Crown, a jagged battleship once declared lost in the Arcadia scour. Then the Vigilant Star, an orbital refugee vessel that had vanished 3 decades ago, now retrofitted for war. Both bore the Cerberus mark, white. Paint, cracked and fading, but proud. They hailed the arclight. A grizzled voice came through the static. Captain Rourke, survivor of the Titan blockade. We got your signal, Commander. Didn't think anyone on Earth had the stones to broadcast. Idris smiled faintly. We didn't have a choice. The Senate's cleansing the system. Cerberus is reawakening. Then it's time we stopped hiding. More ghost ships followed. Each one a relic of resistance. Disarmed, forgotten, left. To rot in void space, but rearmed in secret, their hulls patched with raw steel and vengeance. Across the system, humans who had refused to surrender were rising again, no longer waiting for permission. Cerberus had teeth. But it was the memory of humanity, the refusal to kneel, that gave it bite. Below them, the Setinax pivoted to face the growing swarm. It launched orbital countermeasures, orbital mines, and spectral EMP nets. The ghost fleet scattered and burned, but returned fire. Kinetic rounds struck the Setinax's flanks. For the first time, it bled. They didn't expect this, Ava said. They thought we'd go quiet into the dirt. We almost did, Idris muttered. A pause passed between them. Then Ava reached into her coat and pulled out a second black crystal, like the Cerberus key, but etched with strange alien glyphs. Idris's brow furrowed. That's not human. No, Ava admitted. It's consular. He stared. You were deep inside, weren't you? Deeper than they knew, she said. When the Senate passed the nullification accord, they locked every Terran file behind an ancient protocol, sanction fire. But I stole something before I left. She slotted the crystal into the console. The display flickered. A new map. Unfolded, not of Earth, but of Senate territory. Worlds highlighted. Civilian nodes. Weak points. This is their kill switch, Ava said. Buried in diplomacy. A key to every fleet, every weapon AI. They trusted no one. Not even themselves. And now we have it, Idris said, voice low. No, Ava corrected. Now we use it. The ghost fleets realigned into a war formation. Idris keyed open comms. This is Commander Harlan. All Terran ships. Full burn. The time for silence is over. The Senate called for our extinction. Let them hear our answer. The fleet roared. Forward. Below. Cerberus installations continued to rise. Turrets hidden under the crust of Ceres. Atmospheric mines above. Titan. Defense networks that had slept for 50 years, now reactivated under old Terran war codes. The Centnax fought back. But for every shot it fired, 10 more lit up the void in reply. And then, with a coordinated burn, the ghost fleet surrounded the Senate dreadnought. They didn't fire. Not yet. Idris's voice came cold and clear across the vacuum. To the officers aboard Centnax, you are in violation of post-accord. Article 7. Execution of unarmed civilians. You are ordered to stand down. If you do not, Earth silence ends here. A moment of silence. Then the reply came, not from a person, but a cold, mechanical voice. Terran resistance detected. Purge protocol confirmed. No mercy authorized. Idris turned to Ava. Guess we found our answer. She didn't blink. Then let's give them the one they never expected. Idris looked out at the stars, then gave the order. Fire. The Centnax was torn apart in a crucifix of railfire and wrath. But it was only the beginning. Because far beyond the system and the consular core, alarms were just starting to ring. Humanity had answered. And this time, they would not. Disarm. The smoke hadn't cleared from the wreckage of the Centnax before the retaliation began. From the outer edges of the galactic spine, hyper-shrouded fleets slipped into dark space. Nameless, crestless, bound not to law but to final protocol. They moved in silence and without identity, the Senate's true enforcers. Their arrival wasn't broadcast, and their targets weren't military. They hit Aethra, a civilian orbital ring still mourning the last war. Solstice Haven, a Terran consular. Neutral Moon, reduced to slag. New Lucentia, a cradle world, bombed while its people slept. They did not ask questions. They did not issue terms. They erased. On the Arclight, Idris Harlan read the death reports like eulogies, each name a brand pressed deeper into his soul. Across the command deck, Ava Roslin stared at nothing. New Lucentia had no weapons, she said. They had voices, Idris replied. That was enough. Her hand trembled at her side. My brother lived there. Idris said nothing. The silence between them was louder than grief. The old Cerberus war map glowed with fresh red scars. Systems burned out. Planets marked for nullification. The Senate wasn't responding like a fractured bureaucracy. This was coordinated, immediate, personal. They knew who to hit, Idris said. The ones who carried the oldest sparks. The ones who'd never forget Earth. They're trying to gut the bloodlines, Ava whispered. Make this the last generation of defiance. The door hissed open behind them. Captain Rourke entered, his face like stone. We've confirmed the fleet that hit Aethra. No standard Senate models. Full stealth. Hit and erase tactics. Not military, assassins, shadow accords, Idris said. I thought those were rumors. They're not, Ava murmured. They're the Senate's fail-safes. When diplomacy fails, when purges don't work, they wipe the roots. They're scared, Idris said. No, Rourke corrected. They're angry. Because for the first time since the Accord, Earth didn't obey. A long silence stretched. Then Idris turned to Ava. We need to strike back. Not defensively. Loudly. Ava hesitated. That means going into their territory. I know. There's only one target that'll shake them. She paused. The Luminous Archive. Rourke flinched. You want to hit the Senate's core memory vault? It's not just records, Ava said. It's how they control history. What the galaxy is allowed to remember. That's how they made humanity the villain. That's how they made the Accord legal. If we wipe that clean, Idris said slowly. We don't wipe it, Ava said. We restore it. Everything they buried. Terra's sacrifices. The Verge truth. The Accord lies. We show the stars who we really are. Where is it? Rourke asked. Ava hesitated. Then, Synaxis Prime. Deep inside the Senate's neutral core. Even Idris blinked. That's suicide. It's justice, she said quietly. And I've been there. Rourke looked to Idris. If we go, we lose half the fleet getting through. You willing to pay that? Idris didn't speak for a moment. He looked at the wall, at the photos of fallen colonies, of screening planets, of New Lucentia. We've already paid more than half, he said. I won't let those names vanish. He turned to Ava. Prep a strike wing. We'll split the fleet. Draw fire near the perimeter belt. You take the Vigilant Star and a stealth team. Get in. Light the archive. And if we don't get out, you will, Idris said. Because they'll be chasing me. Hours later. The fleet entered shadow space, separating like wolves into the dark. As Vigilant Star vanished behind an asteroid field, Idris took the arc light straight toward the perimeter line. They were met by a vanguard of Senate interceptors, not warships, but cleaners, drone hybrid rippers that bled static and had no crew. Idris looked at their formation. They're not trying to negotiate. They're trying to erase. He glanced at the helm. Full burn, all forward guns. The ship roared. Old cannons fired in tandem. The arclight, centuries old, screamed like a newborn fury across space. Every system redlined, every soul aboard committed. This wasn't about winning ground. It was about buying time. As Senate ships closed in, Idris remembered the voice of his mother, a resistance medic who died in the Verge fallout. When they come for your weapons, they're afraid of what you'll do with them. But when they come for your history, they're afraid of who you are. He whispered into the dark, then let them be afraid. The arclight vanished in a nova of light and fury, taking 5 Senate ships with her. And somewhere in the quiet dark, the Vigilant Star reached orbit over Synaxis Prime, ready to make the stars remember. The Vigilant Star cut through Synaxis Prime's atmosphere like a whisper. Below sprawled the Citadel, a crystalline monolith rising from the planet's surface, wrapped in shimmering data conduits that spiraled skyward into the void. This was the Luminous Archive, not merely a vault, but the neural center of the Consular Senate's reality-shaping machine. What you knew, what you remembered, what history taught your children, it all flowed through this place. Ava Roslin stood in the drop pod's harness, helmet in hand, armor matte black and unmarked. This was not the armor of a soldier. It was the skin of a truth-bearer. She turned to her team, a 5-person unit of Ghostburn operatives, veterans of wars that officially never happened. Some had scars erased from public record. All had reasons to see this place burn. Remember the objective, Ava said. We don't just delete their lies. We restore our truth. We show the galaxy what Earth bled for. They nodded. No oaths, no speeches. Just breath held before the plunge. Then the pod dropped. They hit atmosphere at terminal velocity. Anti-sensor fields scattered light's heat signatures. By the time the Citadel's sentries looked up, they were already inside. The landing cracked the archive's outer ring. One of Ava's team went down in a flash of railgun fire. Another lobbed a transonic disruptor that turned 3 Senate guards to vapor. Ava sprinted for the entry terminal, her hand glowing with an old Senate diplomat's ring. The door recognized her. With a hiss, it opened. They were inside. Deep within the archive, past vaults of memory gardens and light-reactive data. Groves, they reached the core, a chamber older than the Citadel itself. Floating in the center was the Keystone Array, the neural map of every truth the Senate had ever allowed or denied. Ava's voice cracked as she stepped forward. It's still here. They never destroyed it. They just locked it behind silence. She reached for the control pedestal. Her palm hovered. The lights turned blue, the archive verifying her genetic signature. Welcome, Roslyn Ava Delta. The room rippled with whispers. Verge War, censored. Cradle bombings, censored. First contact treaty breaches, suppressed. Earthian ceasefire proposal, 27AX, denied. She breathed in, and then she unlocked it all, a single pulse. One command, and the floodgates opened. Across the galaxy, every public node news feed, education center, and Senate console flashed red, then white, then truth. Images of children, gunned down during the Accords, peacekeeping. Footage of the Centenax reducing surrendering ships to dust. Recordings of Idris Harlem, leading wounded civilians through firestorms. Testimonies of the last Terran Council, begging for a future. The galaxy watched, and the Senate began to fracture. Ava didn't smile. She only breathed, finally, as if the universe had been holding its breath with her. Then came the second signal. Vigilant Star, come in, said Idris's voice. Fractured. Bleeding. We're hit. Bad. Lost 3 support ships. But we gave you time. Ava keyed in, blood pounding. You're still alive. Barely, but... Ava, there's something you need to see. I'm sending the coordinates. Archive shows another vault. Not Cerberus. Not Stygia. Something else. Where? Earth. The word stopped her breath. Beneath the Atlantic Ridge. It predates. The Verge. It predates us. Project Cody name. Pantheon. She turned to the team. Evac. Now. We're not done. They moved. But the archive's lights dimmed. The exit sealed. Ava raised her weapon. Out of the dark came a figure, cloaked in silver-threaded robes, an alien with elongated features, a Zarn consular. Not military, not assassin, but old, a warden of memory. You've done the unforgivable, it said. No, Ava answered. I've done what you feared. You humans, always reaching, always defying order. That's why you tried to erase us, she said coldly. Because we don't obey the way your machines do. You are chaos incarnate, it said. You burn everything you touch. Ava lowered her weapon, then raised her voice. We build in the ashes. That's what makes us different. And she fired. The warden fell. They escaped through fire. Elsewhere. On Earth, deep beneath the Atlantic Ridge, a machine blinked. For the first time in 2 centuries, it scanned the stars. It spoke. Signal verified. Human persistence. 42%. Status. Resurgence. Initialize Pantheon protocol. On the surface, waves rose. The planet remembered Earth. The original. Cradle. The wounded mother. The myth. Now a pale sphere hanging beneath orbit. riddled with Senate scars and crusted remains of abandoned satellites. A dead planet to most, but Ava Roslin knew better. She stood on the bridge of the Vigilant Star, helmet under one arm, her eyes locked. On the Atlantic Ocean far below, where the coordinates pulsed like a forgotten heartbeat. "Are you certain it's real?" Rourke asked beside her. The man had seen legends rise and fall, and still doubt clung to his voice. She nodded. Pantheon was the last black vault. Idris found its name buried inside the archive. Pre-Verge, pre-Accord. It was never listed, not even in Cerberus files. "And what is it?" "I don't know," she admitted. "But it woke when the truth did. That's no coincidence." Rourke stared down at Earth, voice dry. "We spent centuries reaching for the stars. Now the answer's beneath our own feet." The Vigilant Star descended. Beneath the Atlantic ridge, a hatch bloomed open from the seafloor like a great iron flower. There was no Senate registry, no beacon, no defense net. And yet, as they approached, the ship's systems slowed, not jammed, not damaged, calmed. Ava whispered to the AI, "Announce us." The ship sent no message, and yet the ocean opened. Inside the vault, the world felt older than language. The walls were not metal, but layered memory, living, humming, woven with strands of light and ancient code. Glyphs flickered across them like fireflies trapped in deep water. Ava stepped through with a small team, their boots silent on the obsidian floor. And there it was, in the center, a sphere, suspended, spinning, radiant and human. It spoke without sound. Pantheon activated. Guardian recognized. Ava Roslin, last bearer of the Flame Accord. Query: does humanity seek judgment or resurrection? Ava hesitated. Her voice caught in her throat. "Neither," she said. "We seek our truth and the right to stand." Unchained, the light shifted. Then prepared the final transmission. A console emerged, ancient and new all at once. It bore the Terran seal, scorched at its edges. Data streamed. Images, warnings, blueprints, names, operation, Earthshock, protocol, Terran sovereignty override asset, Pantheon core memory systems final directive, to be executed only upon forced. Disarmament of Earth. Ava's breath caught. They hadn't built Pantheon to win a war. They built it to ensure no one ever erased what made them human. It wasn't a weapon. It was a seed, a map, a call to arms, to memory, to origin, a resurrection machine. "Bring it online," she whispered. The vault flared to life. All across Earth, in its broken cities, dormant satellites, buried bunkers. Forgotten systems lit up, civilian cones. Decommissioned defense networks. Ancient orbital telescopes now reborn with purpose. And across the stars, something far more powerful happened. People listened. A signal, old as Earth's first colony ship, pulsed through the void. We were never gone. We were never broken. We were buried, and we remembered. Meanwhile, in the shattered outskirts of the belt, Idris Harlan bled in silence. The Arclight floated amid wreckage, her hull gutted, crew scattered, engines dying. 5 Senate purgers circled her like vultures. One final blow would end it. But he wasn't dead yet. He sat against the fractured bulkhead, hand clamped to his side, watching stars drift through the cracks. The voice of Stygia whispered faintly in his neural port. Final protocols depleted. Core systems collapsing. "Commander, we are at end state." "No," Idris rasped. "We're at the door." "They walk through us. Well, they never walk at all." He keyed the manual override on the comms. Static screamed. And then Ava's voice came through. "Pantheon is awake. Earth is talking, Idris. The stars are hearing us." His laugh came out as blood. "Good. Then light the way. I'll hold the gate." A flicker passed across his vision. Tactical readouts. From distant systems. Ghost fleets shifting course. Civilian havens rising in protest. Entire planetary governments questioning the Senate's edicts. Earth's message had fractured the galaxy's mirror. The myth of peace had cracked. And through that crack, humanity shone. Back in the vault, Ava turned to Rourke. "It's time." "Time for what?" he asked. She touched the console again. And the vault rose. From the seafloor to the skies, an ancient Terran spire emerged, once hidden, now ablaze. Its signal was no longer a whisper. It was a roar. A challenge to the stars. To every world that remembers its fire. To every race that was taught to fear Earth. We are coming, and we are ourselves again. The last silence broke. The next day would bring fire. The Terran spire towered above the Atlantic like a blade of light. Ancient, alien, ours. From its peak, the Pantheon signal thundered across space, awakening caches, fleets, and broken colonies long thought lost. Earth crippled, quiet Earth was. Speaking again, not in words, but in memory, in conviction. And across the stars they heard. In the orbit of Zarna's Ix, a planetary governor renounced the accord. In the Rivone Nebula, a human colony once silenced by treaty fired on a Senate patrol ship. On Ashkar Theta, Terran descendants emerged from exile with mothballed warships, the Dawnborn Guard. They called it rebellion. It was remembrance. In low Earth orbit, the vigilant star stood between the Terran spire and annihilation. A full Senate purge fleet had arrived, 30 ships, each the size of a city, black-armored and bristling with sun cannons. Their message was cold. Stand down, Earth. Deactivate the Pantheon anomaly. Final termination orders authorized by unanimous vote of the Consular Senate. Ava Roslin stood on the bridge, gaze locked on the display. They voted for extinction. Captain Rourke shook his head. Not extinction. Control. If they can't disarm us, they'll make sure we never rise again. From deep within the spire, the Pantheon core thrummed, aware, awakening. Its voice, now fully formed, whispered into Ava's mind like a dream. Carved into light, I am the sum of human perseverance. I am the encoded defiance of 1,000 forgotten dead. If I fall now, so does the idea of Earth. Will you give me to silence? Or to the stars? Ava clenched her jaw. We give you? To them. All of them. No more secrets. No more fear. Pantheon responded by opening every channel in the system. The galaxy tuned in. It saw her. It saw Earth. And then, in a whisper of static, a voice from the grave. This is Idris Harlan. Arclight is still operational. Ava gasped. He's alive? The screen crackled to life. Idris sat in a shattered command seat, face bloodied, uniform torn. Behind him, the Arclight drifted, battered, but burning with light. From its core, Stygia's voice echoed like a hymn. They demand silence. We reply with thunder. The comes opened again. The Senate Fleet Commander's voice was cold. Steele, you will not be warned again. Ava stepped forward. We were warned enough. You warned us with fire, with broken treaties, with children buried under peace banners. And still, we're here. You should have finished the job. Now we finish the lie. She activated Pantheon's primary pulse. The Terran spire blazed like a second sun. In its light, encrypted signals surged to every human aligned eye, lost colony, buried fleet, unlocking them, not with commands, but with permission, to choose, to remember, to fight. The Senate ships responded in kind. Missiles screamed from orbit, and Earth screamed back. The orbital sky turned into fire. The vigilant star took a hit across the port side. Hull breach alarms shrieked, but Ava held firm. She activated Earth's forgotten defense lattice, Pantheon's final gift. Ancient satellites ignited, hidden kinetic platforms bloomed open from ocean trenches, and a cloud of Terran-built war drones burst from the Mariana Vault. Across Earth's exosphere, an AI chorus long dormant spoke in one voice. We are Earth's memory. We were told to sleep. Now we remember. Now we strike. The stars lit with fire. Senate ships began to fall. 1, then 3, then 7. But they struck back with sun lances and quantum decouplers that sliced through orbital layers like paper. On board the Arclight, Idris Harlan stared down the flagship of the Purge Fleet, the Tyrant's verdict, and opened the channel. This is Commander Idris Harlan, son of Earth, student of loss. You've hunted us for generations. You taught the galaxy to forget us, but you forgot one thing. He stood now, blood dripping from his temple, braced at the helm. We don't die in silence. We die shouting your name. He rammed the Arclight straight into the heart of the Tyrant's verdict. Every reactor overloaded. The last transmission caught the moment the ships collided, and the sky above Earth turned white. The Senate fleet buckled in confusion. And then, from behind the moon, 1,000 new ships emerged. Old Cerberus cruisers, refugee-forged dreadnoughts, civilian convoys turned war-hardened. At their head, the Nightingale, Alara Kens. Voice sharp as vengeance. Earth stands, and now so do we. The last phase began. One by one, Senate ships were isolated, overwhelmed. Some fled. Some self-destructed. A few surrendered. By the time the last cannon fell silent, Earth was still burning, but still whole. The Terran spire stood tall. The Pantheon signal still blazing. And Ava Roslin, kneeling on a blackened command deck, whispered one line into the surviving feed. Now the stars remember our name. The war ended without ceremony. No treaties. No final declarations. No triumphant parade. Just silence, the stunned kind, the holy kind, left in the wake of fire. The Consular Senate fractured within days. Some members vanished. Others denounced their oaths publicly, transmitting old apologies like prayers into the dark. Entire systems severed themselves from the accord, reclaiming their history like stolen children coming home. The stars had seen something impossible. Earth, the outcast world, had not begged. It had bled, and it had burned, and in doing so, it had taught the galaxy what it meant to be alive. The Terran spire still stood, unchanged, unwavering. At its base, where the ocean winds met the scorched stone, Ava Roslin knelt beneath a simple steel marker. It read, Idris Harlan, born of ruin, died a door. He held the line so we could walk through. She didn't speak for a long time. Just sat there, letting the waves kiss her boots, the wind pull at her coat, the Pantheon pulse hum low and steady through the earth beneath her. Then a voice behind her said, he would have hated the statue idea. Captain Rourke stepped beside her, arms crossed, half of one still wrapped in medical tape. The other held a folded black flag, the old Terran banner, patched from a dozen wars, its corners scorched. He'd say we don't need symbols, Ava said quietly. He was wrong, Rourke replied. We are symbols now. She stood slowly, brushing sea salt from her knees. How many worlds answered the signal? 59, Rourke said, and counting. A pause. Then, they want something new. Ava turned to him. A new accord? No, Rourke said. A new council, one without erasure, without pretense. He handed her a small data-etched stone, not tech, but Terran basalt, carved with 12 names. Some human, some alien, the founding flame, he said. They want you to sit the first chair. Ava stared at the stone. I'm not a politician. You're not, he agreed. But you're what we need. Someone who remembers. She looked to the sky, where orbital stations were being rebuilt, not as weapons, but watchtowers, as reminders. Where refugee ships from every species now docked in peace at Earth's edge. Where fleets no longer bristled with silence, but sang in a dozen languages. We can't lead them, she said softly. Rourke raised a brow. Why not? Because Earth isn't here to lead, Ava said. We're here to remind them why they stood up in the first place. A gust of wind caught her coat. She let the flag unfold. It rippled in the air, black and starlit, stitched with the words Idris once whispered. They forgot our name. We made them remember. Across the galaxy, echoes of Earth's defiance turned into legend. The broken colonies rebuilt. Zarnizix became a memorial world, its skies etched with the names of the lost. Revo turned its war-scarred nebula into a sanctuary of old memories, no data altered, no names erased. Even the remnants of the Senate, humbled and fractured, found new purpose. Some became historians. Others became witnesses. None forgot. Pantheon became more than a signal. It became a school, a monument, a place where the truth could live unedited. No hierarchy, no single voice. A place where children of every world could sit side by side and ask, what was Earth? And the answer would come again and again. We were broken, but we were never beaten. We fell, and we remembered how to rise. We bled, and in our blood we found fire. And sometimes in the Pantheon chambers, where the lights flickered like old stars and the walls pulsed with a heartbeat not quite mechanical, a voice would speak, soft and familiar. This is Idris Harlan. If you're hearing this, it means we did it. We were the match in the dark, the last shout before the silence. And if you're still listening, then so are they. Never forget who you are. Never forget Earth. Ava Rossland stood once more at the edge of the Atlantic, looking down into the waters that now glowed faintly, not from pollution or decay, but from the living pulse of memory. Her comlink buzzed. They're ready for you, said Rourke. Let them wait a moment longer, she replied. She closed her eyes, breathed, listened, and far beneath the waves, in the vault of what they once were, Earth whispered.